right, today I'm excited. I have Richard Kim with me. He is the founder of myvideoseries.com, and he's going to talk to us about video production, all the things that they do, everything that they create, and also just share a little bit about his entrepreneurial journey and his story. So Richard, tell me how you got started. Give me kind of the brief overview of how you realized that you were an entrepreneur and how that led you to where you're at today.
Oh, God. So, when I was, I don't even know if I can say this because it wasn't necessarily legal, but it started in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this, it started in high school. The salesmanship, the marketing, and
Awesome.
the lead. That's all I'm gonna leave it to. I very quickly left that. After my mom found out, I got in a lot of but that's where it felt like that's where it first started because I just
you're
needed
not
some
alone.
yeah, exactly. But hey, I had a whole it was a great plan.
Network marketing 101, right?
What's network marketing 101?
Like direct sales, like network marketing, like
Is that okay?
It's kind of like an MLM, right?
Okay. No, but what I'm talking about is not MLA. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I'm just teasing.
But you're in Seattle, right?
I'm east of Cleveland, Ohio. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Gotcha. Well, in Washington, weed is legal now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
So you were just a precursor to what was coming. There's nothing wrong with what you were doing.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, 'cause my friend had a green card, and
cool.
what happened was he had access to all the edibles and like the professionally made edibles and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would basically be flipping it for profit.
Nice. That's awesome.
Say that out there. Yeah, I started out there, but it was a very carefully planned operation, and it was very fun. Like,
yeah,
very exciting. But yeah, figured out that was. I didn't like the crowd that I was attracting to from that, and I was like, this is not the target market that I want to work with. This is the type of risk that I want to take.
Yeah.
And then basically I went to college. I went to India after that. I went backpacking for 4 months, and I imported leather briefcase backpacks from there. So that was another flip. Like, I just saw a cool opportunity. I was like, these bags are dope. Like, they're very stylish. And it was made of camel leather. And so I bought them for cheap, imported to the U.S., and then flipped them for a profit. That's one thing I did. And then also I left the university after 2 years in studying marketing. And I started a website called ouriterations.com. It was a WordPress job board website that connected college students to local small businesses.
Oh, cool.
Because the main reason was that, one, there was a gap. So, most internships that are advertised or marketed, they're like from the highest companies. Like the best companies, right? Everyone knows the Google, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, those internships,
Right.
And like below. But right after that, it just drops. Like, they're like, people usually don't intern if they don't get into those top 10, 15, 20 companies.
Gotcha.
So I was like, here's a gap. I'm going to place these people here. So what I would – and I also had a mission behind it, was because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the most logical ways to get there, to find what I'm really good at, what I want to do, is by trying different things. Like, it just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to discover what you're good at and what you really like by trial and error. So I was like, this is going to be a platform where students like me can actually get that experience and learn about themselves. And so what I would do is, obviously, like, I set up the website. I didn't know much about online marketing and whatnot. So what I would do is I would go on Craigslist and go to internships and jobs, and I would just call everyone and be like, hey, like, are you looking, like,
Nice.
I work closely with university, marketing students, et cetera, et cetera. Like, are you looking for anyone, et cetera? I saw on your Craigslist job posting. And then I would take, if that person said yes, I would take that into the Seattle University Facebook page and, like, within my network. And then I started realizing that it was that they started looking for interns mostly around social media marketing, graphic design, video, that kind of stuff, right? Like, looking for interns in accounting or financial modeling or anything.
Right.
So yeah, like, I spun that off and then did a lot of media projects. yeah, and then I interned in marketing for like 3 different companies. And let's see. Yeah, and then after that, I did my own little like consulting work in marketing. And then one of my big breaks was I got a position at Hyperloop. Are you familiar with that company?
I've heard of them, but I'm not real familiar.
So Hyperloop One is how do you say this? It's like one of Elon Musk's proposed transportation systems.
Okay.
So it's like one of those really fast trains, maglev technology in
Gotcha.
a pressure tube. So it goes like 750 miles per hour. That's like projected speed from the calculations.
Wow.
But yeah, I got to participate that in Seattle's team because there was this thing called the Hyperloop One Global Competition, and it's all over the world. Seattle to Portland was one of the routes, and that was one of the semifinalists. So there were around 2,500 applicants. Semifinalists, there were 35 around the globe, around 12 in the U.S., and we were one of the 12. And so I got to be the director of marketing of that team and lead a team of 3 in marketing. And so that was a huge break. It allowed me to get a lot of great experience. Our GeekWire article was the #1 most shared in this year.
Wow.
Because this
That's
is
awesome.
early in March.
Mm-hmm.
I also got to do a huge Change.org campaign petition, leading 4,000 people to sign on the petition in less than 3 weeks with a budget of $0. Grew an email list to up to like 5,000-6,000 people, and also had a partner email list of over 200,000. And this is all with um, a budget of 0. So like that was when I learned that, look, when you're working on a big mission, something that's truly grand and that can actually like change the world, you're gonna invite a lot of great people who want to work on it, and you're gonna get a lot of help.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned from there. And right before Hyperloop, I wanted to learn more about business and life in general. And I read a lot, and I read a lot of biographies too, because I feel like I could learn a lot from what they've done in their life. But it's like, look, I live in Bellevue. It's a fairly like wealthy neighborhood. Bill Gates lives here. I think Jeff Bezos and a lot of like Microsoft, Amazon, those type of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, there's a lot of really rich people here. I'm just gonna go out there and interview them. So
Cool.
with the video team, I went and like look, who are the richest people here? Like, who are the most successful? So one of the guys is Mod Pizza. They did over 110 million in revenue last year. They're like a pizza chain, fast casual pizza chain. And another guy his name is Kemper Freeman. He owns like $4 billion of real estate here in Bellevue.
Wow. Nice.
And so I was like, look, I'm gonna get in the door with them and learn face to face about their life, what they learn, and see what I can learn from them. And that was also a strategic play in saying like, here's what I could do with my video team. We can make dope content.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, what I gained from that was also like a cool network, but just persistence.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would email them, obviously no response. I would call them, no response. And then what I do, I was like, fuck, all right, I'm gonna put pen and paper, write a personal letter, and see what that does. So I did that, and then that's what actually got me a response.
Wow.
For some guys like Kemper, the billionaire, I had to actually like come by his office a couple times just to catch his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was a lot of persistent pursuit. And so like even just doing those interviews, although they're not even published yet, just doing that gave me some like more confidence in what I'm able to accomplish, just because I was persistent. And I actually like, I can't even believe now, because I'm like, I was this 21-year-old like I didn't really do much, okay, cool, like I was working at Hyper, but like that was it, so after that, like, and then just started building out the video marketing, the content marketing. How I did that was by collaborating with a lot of conferences. So the most recent one we did actually a week and a half ago was the Seattle Interactive Conference. It's like 2,500 people in tech and media. They have speakers from Google, Vice, National Geographic, Adobe, all these big speakers. It's like one of those huge tech media conferences.
Yeah.
Just calling them up and saying, hey, look, we would love to partner up with you. You see that you're not really, hiring anyone for doing your after conference recap video and your promotion video. We'd love to do that for you. So we did that for them, for Keller Williams, for the Seattle Small Business Conference, and we also done projects with Airbnb owners, real estate owners, car dealerships, meal plan companies, you name it.
Very cool. Just by reaching out and being persistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. That is a lot of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's definitely a good that's a good word right there, because I think it's easy to give up when something doesn't work the first time. Like you said, you called and you emailed, which is more than a lot of people would do, honestly, but then that didn't work, and then you're like, well, what else do I have to do? So you write a handwritten letter, which is a great idea in today's day and age, because in a digital world, if I get something in the mail, I'm like, oh, this is cool, I don't get mail. Or like you said, going to the executive's office and catching their secretary. I mean, just chasing them around until you get them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's definitely good advice. If you want to be successful, you better be persistent.
And something that I learned too is leverage. I mean, the other way that I was able to get them, okay, like two things: vision and leverage. One of them was vision is, look, I'm 22 now, but like I was 21 then. So I was like, look, I'm 21, and I want to share this with my group of young entrepreneurs, like youth entrepreneurs, the Gen Z millennials. Right. And I feel like your story and your wisdom can help them a lot. And second was leverage, right? The fact that it's not just me, but it's an audience of people, and it's going to be on video, so it's going to be scalable. I think like that's also what got them.
Gotcha.
So now, like, we're talking to like the CEO of Redfin, VP of Zillow, Kemper, and like another really big real estate person, and we're trying to bring them all together to a group of 500 to 700 real estate agents.
Nice. And
do a huge conference like that. And like Vlad, so Vlad's a part of that.
Yeah.
And another huge thing that I want to talk about is the people that we surround ourselves with. Like just having mentors who push me has been like the single biggest growth factor in my life.
How did you find those mentors, or how did you fall into that, or how did you decide to do that?
Hey, once again, being persistent. So I'll give you a really great example. His name is David H. And I met him at my friend's birthday party at this club called Aston Manor, and he was just like this super cool guy, super friendly, successful, etc. And I was like, look, and at that time I wanted a job at nights because I like going out. So I was like, look, I as well like learn, work as like something in the nightclub industry just during like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. It'd be fun, and make I meet new people, right?
Yeah.
And he told me this now because we're much closer now. But he told me about he said, Rich, that night I gave like at least 4 or 5 people reached out to me, and I gave them my card, and you were the only one that actually reached out persistently and tried to schedule a meeting.
Wow.
So like once again, and David has like he's elevated my life so much, just because he's very well connected in Seattle. Every time he'll take me out, he's like, hey, like this is my buddy Rich, he does this and this, and like obviously like growing that network, right?
Yeah.
But once like if I didn't reach out to David 2-3 times to schedule that meeting,
never would have happened. Yeah.
Exactly. Once again, that persistence. And I also think it's that enthusiasm in terms of getting mentors. It's like, hey, look, what are you enthusiastic about? What do you know a lot about? Because I was actually talking to yesterday at another event. He's an investor in like 15, 20 countries. He's a global guy, and he was saying, and I was asking him, I was like, so how do you meet the right people, right? Because obviously, like, if I want to get better and better, like he deals with people like Mark Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of like the initial investors of Yahoo.
Wow.
This is a big time guy,
Yeah.
and so how do I like get to that level? And he was saying, like, obviously you have to be a learning machine,
Mm-hmm.
um, to learn about, you have to learn continuously about what's going on in the world, because when you're meeting these high level people, that's what they care about. Like they care about what they can impact and what they could influence. And that's usually like really high level ideas,
Right.
right? Like not what's going down in the street in Bellevue.
Right.
Like he's one advice he gave me was, look, read The Economist, read that stuff every day, know it inside and out, because most high level people are going to be having high level conversations about that. And if you can't participate or contribute, if you can't give them some sort of value, like why does that person have to talk to you?
Yeah.
Like just because you're enthusiastic and just because you're a young kid, like that doesn't mean shit, you know?
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's how I'm like, yo, I got it. I'm gonna read The Economist. Like,
Yeah.
but he makes everyone in his company actually read The Economist too, and that was really good advice. Being a learning machine. Um, yeah, and he said like, look, if you're doing that, it'll just figure itself out. Like,
Yeah.
it can't be too hard, right?
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that's excellent advice. What do you so I mean you're very young and you're already hitting some, huge strides of success through persistence and through building your network. Tell me a little bit about what myvideoseries.com is about. What are you hoping to do for people? You touched a little bit about how you're doing some conferences and you're doing other things, but give me some more insight on what that is and how you work with people.
Yeah, so basically, well, mostly we do conferences, which is very straightforward. It's we go to the conference, we shoot it, and then afterwards we give them the after conference recap video.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm moving on to the next stage. I'm doing my last couple projects in my video series.
Mm-hmm.
We so the last project will be next year. We're gonna close the pageant award show. They're doing the first Miss USA, Miss World. Yeah, that's gonna be super cool. And once again, that's through connection of David.
Nice.
Right? So like, but I'm moving into the chatbot space. I'll actually be running the marketing for another company.
Cool.
So that's a great opportunity. Let's see. Yeah, I did what I could, and then I learned what I did. But at the end of the day, I didn't like my goal is not to build a video production agency, and I'm happiest when I can give the most value to other businesses and other people, because it makes me happy to see them be like, this is gonna grow my business, I'm gonna love it, etc. And basically, my friend owns the chatbot company, but that's a new technology that can really help people.
Yeah.
So I'm heading into that.
Very cool. So do you plan on just kind of closing up my video series, or will you try to sell it, or what will happen with that? Will you leave it with, you mentioned one of your team members is pretty young actually. Will you just hand it to him?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, projects are still going to come my way. I know that just because I built that reputation and I have a portfolio, but it's not something I'm going to like relentlessly pursue. I'm just going to like hand it off. Yeah. As you said, like, here, look, here's a project. Just go ahead with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it'll just kind of sit in the background for you, which will be good.
Yeah. And once again, like, if I can connect people together and give you value, like, that's great.
Yeah. Definitely. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, and it's one of the things you mentioned that you want to chat about today is, connecting people, being a giver, like being a man of character and building partnerships. Talk to me a little bit more about your kind of mindset or your approach with that, because you talked about your earliest entrepreneurial experiences. You learned a little bit, but you realized that wasn't kind of the crowd you wanted to be with. And now you're with, really high level mentors, and you've contributed some great video, and you're doing a lot of things. Define a little bit more what success looks like, because I think that's what you're kind of alluding to in those notes that you gave me of, being a giver and being a man of character. Like, talk to me more about that.
Yeah. that's something that Vlad mentioned. This was a couple weeks ago. He said, "Look, like there's three types of people," and this is from Adam Grant's interview, but Adam Grant from the author originals. There's givers, matchers, and takers,
Mm-hmm.
and like just looking back at my life, like I wouldn't be where I am today. Like even though I'm not like really far,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for certain people who gave to me.
Mm-hmm.
It just like gave so much to me when I didn't deserve it. Like just a young kid, not really. I still don't really know what I'm doing, but just a young kid, and they gave me their time, their energy, their wisdom, and that I look at with like such a positive light. Like I want to be that person for other people because I'm so grateful for guys like Vlad, David, and yeah, like I just want to be that for other people, and it just makes you it makes me a happier person
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I have that type of network.
Yeah.
Like people that I can call my friend. And it just makes business much better too.
Yeah.
If you have people that really care about you and want to give you the best and hope for your success, like
Yeah.
that makes life even better. So I feel like that's one of the most important things in my metric of success. It's like from the people that I know, how many of them are givers, how many of them are positively influencing my life, how many of them are rooting for me, how many of them are have the same type of character. So like character meaning like does this person have high integrity,
Mm-hmm.
honesty? Does this person have compassion for others? Right? Does this person want to help other people? Those kind of things are they're very important to me because I've worked with people who are kind of like assholes, like who step on other people, who degrade other people, and it's like like they might be nice to me, right?
Right.
But
But you
it's
see
not
how they
nice.
treat others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one, okay, like maybe he's been nice to me, like that might feel good or whatever. But like one, would I want to surround myself with someone who has that sort of reputation?
Yeah.
Like no. Like, and second, it's just like not a nice person to be around. So I think being around good human beings is very important to me. And actually, that's something I learned through working with a nonprofit called Ladybug House. They're building Seattle's first pediatric palliative care home. So there's a huge gap in it's basically like end of life support for kids with terminal illnesses.
Wow.
I'm their marketing, and they basically they're raising. There's like two in the country in the U.S. But there's over like 30 in the U.K.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing their marketing and helping them raise actually $20 million. That's gonna be a huge project. But once again, like the founder, she's been a nurse for the past 40 years, 20 years in Seattle Children's and 20 years in Seattle Medical in the oncology unit for kids.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a great human being, and working for a nonprofit is like me being a giver. Like that's like my way of like I'm gonna give my time, energy to help this wonderful human being reach her mission of, having kids' last days on this earth be a beautiful one,
Yeah.
not one in the hospital plugged to, like with all the beeping and like the sterile environment.
Right.
But she wants to make it like a home where all families can come, they can enjoy their last days. So like that also has changed my life because I get to be a giver now.
Mm-hmm.
And what Suzanne Gwynn, the founder, says, ladybughouse.org, guys. What she says is, you have to give. Like, who am I to not give other people the opportunity of giving? Because she asks for whether it's donation or for help or etc. Right?
Yeah.
So look, I ask all the time because I want to give them an opportunity to give, and because they're gonna get so much out of giving too. They're gonna get a lot of gratitude.
Yeah.
So that has profoundly changed my life.
Yeah, and that's a really great perspective, especially for nonprofits or anybody that's watching this that's involved in nonprofit. It's the right perspective, and I guess I never really thought about it that way. If you're not asking, you're not giving somebody that opportunity. And I know how it feels to give. I love giving to the nonprofits I support around here, or donating or helping me. Like, that's super fulfilling. And so, it's good for the other person too. And if you're too timid in asking, then you're actually hurting everybody involved. So that's a really interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would suggest like people in my age too. Um, yeah, like I feel like my generation, like we're all very like money hungry, like success hungry, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And I think that's cool, that's great, but uh, really like people who are my age and younger, like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, um, like look for a cause that you really believe in, and one of those would be like let's just say that you're walking across the street and like in your everyday life, like remember a part when you said, like that doesn't seem right. Like that does not seem right. I feel like that should not be the way it is. Look for
Yeah.
an organization that works with something like that, and most importantly, only work with the founders or the people that you believe in and that you admire.
Yeah.
Like, don't work it like because I feel like that's so important. The reason I was working with Suzanne and Ladybug House is because of Suzanne.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah, with all your mentors or the people, even like something like that, where your goal is just to give back, I would totally agree. It's really important to, work with people that you really admire in all areas of life, not just like, oh, they make a bunch of money or they founded this years ago. Because yeah, how they treat people on a day-to-day basis, what they're actually contributing to, what they're actually a part of, means a lot more than than the dollar signs they have in their bank account or whatever. Because for me, I think it's something I've probably done wrong in years past, where I've learned from people or been mentored by people, but I don't really believe in their whole kind of lifestyle or mindset, or I see how they talk about others, or I see, they're not consistent in being compassionate, and yeah, and it's you can only learn so much from those people. It's not that you can't learn anything, but if you really want somebody to challenge you and kind of take you to the next level, I think you have the exact right mindset. I mean, really look for somebody that you admire as a human being, and then, in business and whatever else, it'll be easy comparatively. So,
Yeah, and like that's why I said the character part.
yeah.
'Cause, like, I don't know, like it just elevates like that elevated me as a human being.
Hmm.
Being around people who are like, I mean, like I don't even think like yes, highly driven, but I don't
Hmm.
think that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Because let's just say you can be highly driven but have shit integrity.
Yeah, be an asshole to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like sitting over just like compulsively lying to other people.
Hmm.
Yeah. So once again, and what I think what young people uh tend to think is like, look, I'm so young. Like, how can I help someone like that?
Hmm.
But hey, look, I think new ideas are everything. I mean, obviously execution
Right.
is much more important, but like some of these nonprofits, they need ideas, and usually ideas come from young people who are sort of naive, haven't
Yeah.
been in that industry for a long time. They're like, oh, like how about this? This
Yeah.
hasn't been said.
Right. Fresh ideas for sure.
So ask, like, don't hold back in like that kind of pursuit.
Yeah. Excellent. And I think one other cool thing I've kind of heard through your story today is that you've just said like, oh, here's a need. I'll go see if I can fill it or be a part of it or connect the right people, and I'll learn along the way, the way, and maybe I'll get something or maybe I won't. And you kind of just go in like facing the market or the people that you want to help, or you're just kind of looking outward and allowing time and process and everything to just kind of happen to you in a sense, because
Yeah.
in another 2 or 3 years you'll have done the chatbot project and who knows what else, and you'll have developed more and grown more, and you'll just be learning along the way instead of you going at it like sometimes I see people going like, especially at your age or honestly any age you're in their entrepreneurial journey, they're like, oh, this is the one thing I'm going to do, and then I'm going to try to stick to that forever.
Mm.
And maybe that works for some people, but maybe your approach is a little bit more flexible, because who knows what's going to happen to technology or marketing or the economy or whatever in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. If you're always going in with the mindset of like, how can I connect people or how can I solve this problem for this audience, then you're going to be fine. What you do today or in 2 years, in a sense, is kind of irrelevant, because if you're always facing a problem with that attitude, then I think you'll always have something to do. So
So like the way I was approaching it is, okay, creating video series has been fun.
Yeah.
It's making some money.
Right.
But like looking ahead, is it really a good value add?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was thinking like, is it okay? And there's statistics saying in 2019, 90% of web traffic, internet traffic is going to be video.
Hmm.
Okay, great, but is it really a great value add? Meaning, how do I say? Like, is it even competitive? Right? Like, look, making a video, it's getting easier and easier.
Yeah.
Why would they just like if they're really serious about it, they would just hire an in-house videography team.
Yeah.
Like, and like doing video projects for like $500,000, not lucrative at all. That takes a ton of work too.
Yeah.
So like that was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, this has been fun. I've learned a lot, added a lot of value to people, but it's time to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important is to look at trends and say, like, look, it's shifting. Like, where is the next opportunity?
Yeah.
Right. And that to me was chatbots.
Very cool. Awesome, Rich. Well, this has been really valuable. I think you have a lot of interesting things that you've done so far and that you're working on, and I really feel like what you shared about just like who your mentors should be and who you should hang out with and who your network is. I think that's even more valuable than the the tech or the ideas you've worked on so far, because I think that mindset will carry you very far. And for anybody listening too, just kind of taking that approach is absolutely the most successful approach in my opinion. So appreciate you being on and sharing this with everybody. If somebody wants to work with you or connect with you or just say, hey, what's the easiest way to get you?
Let's say rich@ladybughouse.org. And can I like ask you a couple questions too and learn a couple
Absolutely.
things?
For sure.
Okay, so in terms of people,
Mm-hmm.
what has been like what has allowed you to what kind of mindset has allowed you to connect with people and give more value to them?
It's a great question, and you get the award for being one of the first people to turn the interview around on me. I think for me, the easiest way that I've been able to connect with people is doing what other people don't think to do or don't realize they can do, and I'll explain that a little bit more. So, as an example, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, there was this up and coming Facebook ads guy called John Loomer, and his site is like johnloomer.com. So somehow we connected on LinkedIn, or like I went to his site and saw something and like submitted a contact form, and I had asked him something like generic, and he replied to me, and I got on his email list, but I saw something on his page, and I was like, it wasn't converting well. It was something like, oh, your form is too long, or like you should make your call to action more clear. It was just like something super simple. So I ended up just I found his number, and I can't remember if I like looked it up on Whois or like where I found his number, and I called him up and said, hey, this is Gabe, John, and I just want to see if you need help with any of this. I just wanted to point this out. It's something that I know has worked well for me, and I just wanted to share that with you. So I call this random guy up out of the blue and like say, hey, here's something I just wanted to share with you. This might work better on your site. Just trying to help you. So we initially connected like that, and he was like, oh, thanks. I'm going to try that, and I've been doing this and that, and we had like a nice 5-minute conversation. So I was on his email list then because I like subscribed to something on his site, and he thanked me for it, and like I don't remember what we fixed or what we did together. It was just some little thing. I was like, oh, I'll help him fix this on his site. And then about a year later, since I was on his email list, I was sitting in some boring meeting somewhere. I forget what I was doing. And I saw this email pop up from John Loomer, like on his newsletter list that said, I'm in Cleveland today at Content Marketing World. So I replied back to him and said, hey, John, can I come down to Cleveland and buy you a beer? Because that's like 45 minutes away from me. And he replied back. He's like, sure, I'll be here at this time. And we met up, and I bought him a beer, and we talked, and just through conversation and just like getting to know him, there ended up being some more stuff that he wanted help with. And from there, we actually did some optimizations on his site and like doubled or tripled his email list. I forget what it was. We worked together for like a year and a half, until he was kind of stable and had everything handled, and he was in good shape then. But for me, I've had that situation happen dozens of times, with like what they're not like, I didn't call Elon Musk and he didn't call me back, but but they are these like higher level people where you think that they're super busy and so you don't reach out to them, and then you don't have the opportunity of just saying like, hey, I saw this, I would love to help you fix that problem, because everybody has a website problem or a marketing issue or something. Like you could go to somebody's site and say like, oh, your video is, here's what I would do with your video, it'll take me like 20 minutes to recut this for you and it's gonna be way better, can I do that for you? And they're like, sure. Like if you called me and like looked at some crappy video I made, then you create that connection from there just by serving and giving some value early on, and then the doors open for the bigger opportunity, or maybe they just refer somebody to you or whatever it is. But I guess taking action on solving somebody's problem before you even know them has helped me get into the door more. So I did that with him. Another, and still a good friend, somebody I can call up and say, hey, what's up, and we're still friends. I did that with another guy named Ray Higdon, who's one of the biggest network marketing coaches in the country. And I don't remember the actual case where I like reached out and said, hey, can I help you with this? But I just reached out and said, hey, can I help you with this? He connected me with his business manager, like somebody else like on his team. And I did, chatted with that guy. And then we ended up working with him for, a year or so as well. And I've done that multiple different times. And I think what reminds me kind of similar of your story is like, if you're just like persistent in reaching out and trying to help people, then you will get to people that admire that or need your help or are open to those kind of situations. And not being afraid just to pick up the phone or send a message or send somebody a text message and say like, hey, I saw you have this going on, can I help you with it? Without like any big agenda. Like I didn't go into either one of those with any agenda. I was just like, hey, I just thought I'd share what I saw here. I think if you did X, Y, and Z, you're going to triple your opt-ins, or you're going to do whatever this is. And so that's been probably the easiest way for me to connect with people. And that's how I found, good people to connect with, just, and just consistently reaching out and not being discouraged. I mean, I have gotten plenty of emails back from people when I've just done cold outreach that say, fuck you. And it's like,
that's a good sign.
Yeah. It's like, all right, I must be doing enough. So like not being discouraged by that or getting hung up on, or people telling me like, where'd you get my phone number? Don't ever call me again. I'm like, all right, I won't. You're not going to ruin my day because you're bent because I tried to call you. So just not being afraid of rejection, I think is really important. And then the other thing that I've realized, and I've learned this more even just like in the last year or two, but my grandfather basically raised me from like when I was 9 to like 15 or 16. And my grandfather, he was in construction, but he could walk in anywhere and sell anybody anything. Doesn't matter what it is. And one thing that so he's like, and I would hung out with him for, days on end and like, hung out with him all the time. So it was nice to see somebody else build relationships and sell, because if you can't sell, it's really, really hard to make money as an entrepreneur. It's not impossible, but it's really hard. And so I've learned that selling $1,000 project to somebody is the same as selling $100,000 project, which I'm sure is the same as selling $1 million project. So just like setting aside all your own mental limitations about what people need or want, or projecting on other people your own situation, mindset, poverty, money, whatever it is, just setting all that aside and being totally open to whatever's going to happen allows you to have much bigger things happen.
So basically you're saying like not to think so much internally about like what I can do, but like more not. So basically like focusing on external, like what problem do they have that I can solve?
Exactly.
If I just think like that,
yeah,
then it'll just work out.
Right. And not coming into a meeting or a connection or anything with any agenda of like, this is what I think the person's worth or what they're going to buy or what they need. Just totally going in and asking questions and listening. Like, because it's like the classic kind of, I've heard this from car salesmen before. You got some ratty old construction guy that walks in, and looks like he barely, has a, house to live in. And he's like, I want the $65,000, $85,000 truck that you got sitting out there. And he pulls out cash and gives you cash for it. if you were to judge somebody just from their appearance or what you think about them on any level, then you have no idea their potential, or not just to be a customer, but just no idea about their potential. And that's also important, really important, on both sides of the coin for like people meeting young people like you. I mean, you're 22, and it's easy to stereotypically just say, "Oh, you're a millennial and you're full of shit," because that's what old people like to do. They just like to be like, "Oh, those kids." Like, it's easy the older I'll be 35 next month. I'm not that old, but like it's easier the older you get to be like, "Oh, the kids don't know what the fuck they're talking about." But if I approach it that way, then I can never learn anything useful from you, and we can never help each other just as much as like as a kid or somebody younger, like, or me looking to somebody who's 60 or 70 years old, or as me saying like, "Oh, they're old, they don't know anything about technology." It's just a stupid mindset, because not knowing about something can actually make you provide a better solution, like you said earlier. Like, you can just come in and just like ask it what to the room. Seems like a dumb question in a sense, but it's the real perspective that the outsiders have. Or so just having no agenda and like being really open to what people potential value you can get by collaborating, I think is important too, because it's everybody judges everybody can easily just like accidentally fall into the mindset of like, "Oh, that's how those people are," or "That's how kids are," or "old people are." And so knowing that that's normal is fine, but identify it and set it aside. Like, be like, it's my normal reaction to think that older people aren't any good at technology. We'll just say that's not a real mindset of mine. But if that was your mindset, say like, I realize that that's what I normally think, but I'm going to set that aside, and today I'm going to be open to the fact that this 70-year-old guy may have the next best technology idea in the world. Whereas, because stereotypically we would think it would be kids or like whatever. So that's something I try to keep in mind. I'm not always great at it, but I try to be really open-minded to what's going on, even to the point of like, this week I went and saw this speaking event, and some of the speakers were phenomenal, and the host was horrible, honestly. But I realized that they were horrible in the beginning, but I was like, you know what? They're horrible at this, and I don't agree with how they're doing anything, and it's kind of a weird event, but I'm going to set that aside and be like, what can I learn from this? Even a positive, something positive from that person, that not somebody that I would pursue who I want to mentor me, but in this moment, what can I learn from them? Because there's probably something great they can still teach me, even though they're not my style or not what I would be.
And what technology or what trends are you following right now?
I'm probably not as trend focused as you, which is something I always try to pay attention to. I'm a little bit anti-trend. So like, and I think it's fantastic you're going into chatbots, but I always step back from the technology and say, who's the real customer and how do we serve the real customer? So as an example, like my company and I have done SEO for years, like 10 plus years. And there's always changing trends. There's always all this stuff in SEO that you can read, the Google co-founders blog, Larry, I can't remember his last name right now. Yeah, you can read Larry Page's stuff. You can read the other SEO guys. You can read Maz. You can read all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I do read it. But end of the day, if you focus on the most important principle, then you'll always win at SEO. So the most important principle, and I think this applies in technology and in life, is that in order to be successful in SEO, all you have to do is make sure that your product serves the end customer of the search engine. So all I have to do and win in SEO is when I do any SEO work, make sure that if somebody were to pull up and read that article, it would actually solve their problem. Because if I'm always doing that consistently in the long run, then no trends matter, because I am not aware of any point in the future on the horizon where a search engine's goal is not going to be to give the best answer to the person searching. So I try to pull way out of all the trends and say, what's the real solution that's supposed to be served here, and how do we always focus on that? Because then, it doesn't matter if your site has SSL or if you're using keywords at the right level. Like, you can kind of scrap all that stuff and just say, if I'm serving the ultimate goal of the search engine, then I'm going to win, which is provide great content to the person searching, and Google will always honor you over somebody that's trying to play some scheme or some strategy or just trying to follow a trend. So that doesn't totally answer your question, but that's how I look at trends. I always just try to step out of the trend and be like, what's really going on, like above that. So in housing, there's always trends, you know. The only trends that there's one big trend that I'm super paying attention to right now is that the stock market corrects itself every 8 to 10 years, and we have one coming very soon. So everybody's going to freak out when that happens, and it's going to be a good time to buy.
You got that stockpile. You got that stockpile to buy.
Yeah. So that's going to happen, and you know, and I'm not going to be worried about it because it's going to fall and it's going to do what it's done the last 100 times that it's happened. So I try to pay attention to things like that that are going to affect business on a whole. Whereas, like for me, with chatbots being super popular, or Snapchat or Instagram, some of those things like are just trendy and they may or may not stick. And so in a weird way, like I'm a tech guy. I try anything new. Like I have accounts on anything, and I love trying new tech and trying things out because I kind of geek out on that. But from like a trending standpoint, I usually don't engage the way everybody else does. Like I'm not into chatbots right now, and I guarantee you everybody in my network, like marketing network, is like way more than I am. Just because like sometimes I sit back and watch and let everybody else learn everything, and then I jump in when I feel like everybody else has spent the time and money to figure out how things work. So that's my answer.
Love it. Hey, last question.
Yeah.
If you were, let's just say like 22,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could start over again. What would be your priority? Is it people? Is it the business? Is it, building certain habits? What do you think is the biggest thing starting young?
Habits are super important. One thing that I've done kind of accidentally most of my life is either woken up very early to have focus time. Like you should read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. But I've either woken up very early so that I have complete peace and quiet to work on what's important to me, or I've stayed up very late. I think waking up early is better when you're older. I don't, when you're younger, it's easier to stay up late. But I've always had the habit of like time by myself and time to work on things, or reflection time. So that's something that I would make sure you always have, and be like really time conscious and be realistic about how much you need to sleep and how much you don't need to sleep. Like there's been long stretches of my life, like years at a time, where I've only slept like 3 to 5 hours a night. I can't recommend that necessarily, but the reason I did that is I wanted to learn everything faster than everybody else. So I just figured if I worked 2 days of time, like 16 to 18 to 20 hours in a day, compared to my competitors, friends, whatever, whoever else is out there, that I could grow so much faster because I could absorb more, learn faster. So in a year, I got almost 3 years of learning and hours and knowledge, compared to like doing it normal speed takes years. So I'm super aggressive about that stuff, which is why I think a lot about time and sleeping the right amount of time, not too much, not too little. Now I can't sleep 3 to 5 hours a night. It doesn't work for me anymore. But I did that for almost 10 years. The other thing, and I'm sure it may that may put me in the grave earlier. So, but the other thing that I would
you recommend that?
Huh?
What are the pros and cons of that?
Of not sleeping a lot?
Yeah, like working 20-hour days.
Before I didn't have my son. My son's 6 now, but so this is before him. But when you don't have kids and a family and like whatever, there's no reason not to push as hard as you can, in my opinion. Like you need to pay attention to your body. You do need time off of anything. But I used to work until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Go home, sleep till like 7 or 8, and when it was getting light again, and then I get up and go back to work. But I was living in Chicago then. So my second piece of advice is live a lot of different places. Like if you're not tied down to where you're at, like it seems like you've really tapped your network well there so far, but move to San Francisco, to Chicago, to New York, to Orlando, to Houston, to international places too, obviously, but intentionally like live somewhere for a couple years and just try to max your network, because you don't have a reason, without kids and a family when you're really young, you don't have a reason to be home by your parents, because your parents are going to want to see their grandkids. or like there's other factors that kind of start to drop in on you later in life. But early on, the best thing that I did, was, I moved out on my own when I was 18. And then a few years later, I moved to like a couple hours from my hometown. And then I moved to Chicago. And then my son was born. I wish I would have been a little more conscious of how valuable that is, like really young, because I would have moved to another state when I was 18. And I think college does that for a lot of people. I didn't go to college. I'm self-taught. I've been doing this since I was 16. So, but I'm completely self-taught. But I think college builds your network. But I think also moving to other cities and like meeting people and doing things like that, the broader your social network is, the easier it is to succeed at anything. I always tell people, I pick my phone up and say, I say, pick up your phone. How much is this worth? And they're like, oh, I don't know. It's like, this is $1,000 iPhone or whatever. I'm like, no, this is $1 million minimum. If you have 100 people in there or 200 people at contacts, it's a minimum of $1 million. So I'm constantly growing my LinkedIn network, growing my Facebook, friends, connecting with new people through this podcast, because that's real worth, like from a dollar standpoint, but it's also where you have a real ability to contribute and do something good for the world. So it's both, it's two valuable points at once. But
No, I really like that one. Gotcha. Yeah.
Because think about you. You're persistent in making connections. You got great mentors. In literally 20 or 30 minutes, if you were in a position where you had this amazing opportunity or where you were really in trouble and you needed help, you could make 4 or 5 phone calls and you'd be fine. And that's what life is about. Not your money's going to come and go. Like I made millions in my early 20s and then I lost it all in the housing market crash. And it was a good experience and a bad experience at the same time, but it was a good experience knowing that it's just money. Like I started over and I made a new business. Like when you can disconnect from money completely, you're completely free to make as much as you want, which sounds, it doesn't totally make sense until it happens to you. But so then I don't worry about that as much. My company's growing. I'm happy with where we're at, and I do want to take it well beyond what I did in my first company. I want it to grow, because I think if you're not growing, you're dying and you're not being successful as a company. But I have a different kind of emotional mindset towards money, because if I lost everything tomorrow, it'd probably be a bad day, and the day after that I'd be fine.
Yeah,
it's like
you have the confidence to make it back.
Exactly. It's just not a big deal to me. I know exactly what it takes to make money, to be successful, to start a company, and I have fantastic relationships. I would call you and say, hey dude, I just lost everything, any ideas? Like I have people that I can reach out to, and that's what life and success is about, not how much money I have in my bank account today or don't have. It's just irrelevant. So
Gotcha. Okay, last question.
Yep.
Like you and your inner circle, what do you guys, like your inner group of friends, what do you guys have in common? What keeps you guys together?
I think the biggest thing is like we're always trying new ideas and learning things and just sharing, like real honest opinions. Like I was out Wednesday night with the friend that I went to support speaking at this event, and we all sitting having a beer and we're like, that was the fucking worst event we've ever been to. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna have our own event, and then we planned out and picked all the dates. Like we're gonna go do it the right way. So I think that the most important thing for me, and I'm always trying to build and improve my inner circle of friends. And I've had periods in life and in entrepreneurship where I've had no friends, and that's hard. But when I'm actively kind of building that in the position I am now, I have friends who are about like giving back, who are about taking action on their ideas now, and not just like, oh, someday I'm going to do this. Like we hated what we experienced that night, so we're like, you know what? We're picking dates for next year. We're doing this whole thing. We're going to make it amazing, and it's not going to suck. And we're going to solve this problem, because everybody that came to this event tonight got let down, and we want to solve that. So I think my inner circle people that I really trust and rely on are people that have great ideas, want to give back, and actually take action on something. Like if we were hanging out and having a beer and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go start working at this chat company because I think that's the future. If I came back to you in a month and you're like, well, I decided not to do anything, you kind of immediately get ejected out of my circle.
Yeah.
I don't.
I start Monday.
So that's good. So like if there was no like really compelling reason that you told me why you didn't do it, like I chewed out one of my friends one time because I was like, dude, you told me that you were doing this, and now you're coming to me 3 months later, and you're telling me, I don't really feel like it. I'm kind of giving up on it. I'm like, that's not okay. Like, that's not a good enough reason. Like, you should have at least tried it, or you should have never committed to in the beginning. So that's just kind of how I think of things. And
That's the biggest thing my mentors have done for me when we're going out. It's and like, for example, at the conference, right? I had to speak in front of in front of a panel for Ladybug House, and it was like the city of Seattle people. It was the VP of Zillow and some other VP, right? And I was like like in front of like 200 people, I'm a little scared. Whatever, right? I'm like, what if I don't know what they're gonna ask me? I don't have the right answer. And Vlad was like, dude, Rich, you're gonna like go up to the panel. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna talk to them one-on-one after the panel is done. Vlad's like, dude, just do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like David, who was right next to me, and then I went and did the panel, like spoken, and then talked to him one-on-one afterwards, which had great results. But like, again, like if it wasn't for Vlad or David just like being that extra push, you're like, just do it, dude. Like, stop limiting yourself like that. Stop thinking. And then Vlad, next thing we know, Vlad's psyching himself out, and he's like, should I go talk to that person? And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? What do you mean? Like, just because you should I?
Yeah.
You have to know.
Exactly. And I always accept, like, I started doing Facebook Lives and videos and like a mini version of this podcast a couple years ago. And in the beginning, if you start worrying about, like, when you're going up to that panel, you're going to talk to somebody, if you start worrying about you and start thinking about you, you're thinking inward, you're totally going to screw it up. So number one, accept you're going to be an idiot sometimes, and that's totally cool. Like, you could go look through my Facebook videos and you'll find some stupid videos and you're like, oh my God, that guy's an idiot. But you know what? I did the video, and all, 2,500 of my friends and all my other social media followers and all the people on my email list, they didn't do a video. So I'm better. Like I'm better in the sense that, like, I took action on it. So there's no criticism from anybody like that even shows up on my radar. Like, if my friend Ray Higdon, who's phenomenal at video and does it every day, came back to me and gave me some feedback, I would take that to heart and do whatever he said, because he has done thousands and hundreds of thousands of videos. But there's always going to be people that critique you and tell you that you're doing things wrong. Unless they're where you want to be, then don't listen to them. So it's all noise. And then the other piece is just accept that you're going to look silly, and then it'll take the pressure off you. If you're going to make a mistake, so just be like, that's okay. Like, go look at like one of Steve Jobs' first videos. He looked like an idiot too. It's like, so I always just trying to let myself off the hook by being like, I'm going to say stupid things. It's not going to be rehearsed. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm going to get better by repetition. I'm not going to get better by perfecting my first appearance on video or my first, my first podcast interview. When I did that a few years ago, like, I was nervous, but I was like, you know what? If I screw up, it's okay. I'll just do another one. It's like, so that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. Just go for it, and like, just accept that it's okay that you're going to look like an idiot. You might stutter, you might be nervous. So's the keynote. I've never heard a keynote, guy say, oh, I was, I had some anxiety. I'm a little bit nervous. Like, everybody's nervous. It's just get over it. So yeah, that would be my advice. Just, take action, surround yourself with people who actually do take action. One of my friend that I was out with, and then we'll wrap it up here, Wednesday, he's like, if you quit the podcast, he's like, we can't be friends anymore, so don't do that. Because like, I told him I'm like rolling my new one out and like pre-recording like a bunch of episodes to really like make sure it's nice and strong when we release it. He's like, if you quit that podcast, we can't be friends, and I don't want that to happen. Like, so like that kind of that kind of friendships and people that are gonna like really push you to do more and be successful. So
who will hold you accountable? Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. And invest in yourself with those type of friends, and be willing to pay consultants and pay for training and like pay people that are going to push you. Like, I just hired the most expensive consultant I've ever hired last week, because it's like, I want to take my time management and my schedule from where it is today, which is decent, to be like maximum, efficiency. And so me paying a few $100 an hour is no big deal, because I'm investing in myself. So.
Did you read the book on the shortness of life?
No, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I feel like you'd like that.
Okay.
Or you might not, but
I'm open for anything. I like reading recommendations.
Yeah. I think it's called like Brite Vitae. That's the Latin or Greek word for it. But yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on, Rich. We will check back with you in a couple of months and see how the new projects are going. And if you need anything ever, just reach out. I'd be glad to help you. And I know the audience is going to enjoy this too. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.